Hello and welcome to the IdeaCast interview series, episode number 114. I have two guests in this episode, and this is a part two, a continuation from the I Can Help Digital for Good dialogue that I had with Kim Carr in the last episode. And in this episode, I'm having a discussion again with two persons, and the first being Anvita and Amber. And Anvita is a public relations intern for I Can Help, and Amber Flores. And Amber is a public relations mentor. And this is a continuation of what I Can Help is doing. I spoke with Kim in the last episode, Kim Carr, and she is a co-founder, and we talked about what I Can Help is from her perspective, and then we go into what Anvita and Amber are doing and what their part is in I Can Help. So hope you enjoy the conversation as I did, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. And I'd like to welcome Anvita and Amber to the IdeaCast interview series. I had a previous conversation with Kim Carr, and that should line up with right behind this conversation if you're looking in my uploads. Kim and I had a wonderful conversation, and this is a continuation, but a couple of other minds that are working with I Can Help and Change for Good. So welcome to both of you. I'm so glad to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having us, Justin. Thanks so much.
Yeah, it's an honor because you all are doing some really good work, and work that I think is absolutely essential as we move forward in time and as we reflect on what's been happening maybe in the last 12 years or so with the internet and social media and things like that. So yeah, what I'm thinking is we'll start with a little bit of a background on both of you and let the audience get to know you all, and we can bring us right up to the present with what you're doing with I Can Help and Change for Good. And I said this to Kim, and I've already forgotten. Should we call it Change for Good from now on? I want to include both things. How do you cover that?
We're moving towards digital for good.
Digital for good. Okay.
I Can Help is like our curriculum.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to call it Digital for Good from now on. So, all right. So perhaps, Amber, we'll start with you, and you can get us up to speed as to who you are and what you're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks again for having us, Justin. My name is Amber. I am a mentor, and I've been working alongside Anvita for 2 years now. It's been so wonderful. But as a mentor, I really am just ears, right? I'm ears, and Anvita is like leading the way on the public relations team. And it's just been a fantastic 2 years, seeing not just like the growth of the team, but the growth of every individual on the team that's like growing and doing great things in the community. And it's been fantastic. But a little bit about my background. I do have a undergrad. My bachelor's is in public health. I'm a yoga instructor. It's been a little while since I've taught yoga, but I spent several years working with high school age students, really just getting them like moving physically, right? And helping them understand like the benefit of that sort of thing. And so really when it comes to youth and all of this wellness thing, right? Like I'm a huge advocate because these kids that are coming behind us, they're our future, right? And we have to invest the time and just slow down, right? Slow down and help them understand the importance of all of the things that are ahead for not just them, but for us also as we all learn and grow. So thanks again for having us, Justin.
Of course, of course. Now, I hope I want to mention something, and I hope it's okay. I noticed I was researching you, and that you advocate for veterans, or you help veterans with transition. And I just want to acknowledge that and honor that. And were you in the Air Force too?
I was.
All right. Well,
yeah, I'm an Air Force veteran. My husband's still active duty.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where that whole piece comes in, because I went through those challenges of getting out. I was super young. I didn't really know what direction to go. And so being able to like walk through all of that, right? And be able to figure out, it took me a while of where do I go? How do I get there? Where's the resources? And then also to like just see so many new resources and things like that become available for those that are transitioning behind me, for those that are military spouses and really young, and also not really knowing how to navigate, right? Just so many challenges that come with it. But yeah, I've worked alongside transitioning service members. I've spent a lot of time in nonprofit helping military spouses. And it's just really, really fantastic. I'm a huge advocate of knowing all about the resources in our community. And I'm definitely not like, I'm not from San Antonio, but being able to like really integrate into the community, I think is really, really helpful. And it's something that people don't really know how to do, right? When you're new to a community, like where do you even start? So I've done a whole lot of work with that. I'm really, really proud of it. And it's been a great ride.
It sounds like, and it's got to be so heartwarming to make that kind of positive impact and helping with transition and facilitating that. So, but also thank you for being in the armed forces and being in service to this country and to your husband as well. And again, on top of that, you know, helping others with that transition. Our veterans need all the support they can get. So I appreciate that. Just wanted to acknowledge that before we moved on. So thank you. All right, Anvita, what have you got for us?
So my name is Anvita. I'm currently a sophomore in high school and I live in Southern California. I've been with Digital for Good for 2 years now, and I absolutely love it. It is such a great experience, and I've always been on the public relations team. This year I lead the team. Last year I was a specialist, and we write blogs, press releases, do podcasts to spread the word about digital safety and young individuals who are doing amazing work to help their communities. Um, and I think I've gained a lot of valuable insights through this organization. And I was first introduced through it, actually through Kim. I saw her speak at my middle school 3 years in a row.
Okay.
Um, so freshman year of high school, or summer before that, I um, applied to be an intern, and that's where it all started.
Gotcha. Well, you're doing such amazing things at your age. I'm happy to disclose how old I am, and I think when I was your age, that was probably mid to late 1980s, way back when. And I was not involved in any public service or any volunteerism at all. I had jobs and I hung out, but I wasn't engaged at that point. It took me until I was in my 20s. So hats off to you for being that aware at your age. I really admire that. And if I could, and this might be too nosy, but okay, this is a two-part question. How has this program impacted your future visioning for yourself in terms of your trajectory educationally and career-wise? And can you disclose at this point? Because sometimes I ask teenagers, like, what do you want to do when you get out of high school? Where do you want to go to college? And because I'm just like, I love minds that are, like staring well into the future. So anyway, what if you want to, if you don't want to answer that question, it's perfectly fine. So what are you aspiring to at this point?
Um, so I don't really know what college I want to go to, but
Mhm.
I want to go into like medical research.
Mm,
That's I don't want to go through, the way too many years that it takes to be a doctor.
yeah, yeah.
So, uh, probably want to go into research, but I'm not 100% sure yet.
Okay. I
Um,
got
and
plenty
then
of time.
as for the impact on this organization, this was like, I guess, my first long-term community service project. It's been 2 years now, and I've gotten so many opportunities. I get to do podcasts. I've been with Kim to speak at conferences in the LA area, and I think that's given me so much insight. And I realized that this is something that I have a passion for, and I absolutely love doing nonprofit work and community service. That's something that I would want to continue throughout college and then even past that.
Awesome. Awesome. And here's to that. And hopefully that's infectious. Hopefully your spirit and your light that you shine out to your peers and your contemporaries in that regard will incentivize them and motivate them to do that. Because I think that's the sign of a healthy community that we work for ours, we work for our family and our own good, but then there's make a little time for the others and try to do that. So that's awesome that you have that mindset already. And here's to your success in that regard, as well as anything that you choose to do in the future. So, Anvita, I'll pose a question to you, and you're working with Amber. How is the molding process going? What insights are you getting from having a mentor to guide you in this regard?
Well, Amber is just amazing. I've been working with her for close to 2 years now, and um, she's helping with so many things. Especially I think professional development and just life skills. Developing those, and then networking, and as getting into this time period that you're trying to look for a summer program or other internships. I think it's she's been really helpful in resumes and LinkedIn profiles, and then just overall being someone that you can talk to anytime, and she's always there whenever we need help, and not just for me but for our whole team, and really anyone in our organization. We're pretty much like a family. We all know each other virtually, and so everyone is helping each other out with what they are specialized in or what field they know better about.
Okay. Yeah. And just to be able to have somebody who has your back, who has your interest at heart, has to be reassuring when you have to shoulder down and get into the work. And so that's really neat that this organization has that reciprocity, that exchange between adults and students who are moving in, as Amber said, are going to be inheriting the mantle, as it were, the next group of people that it will be steering our culture and our species. I always say species. It's very inclusive. Anyway, let me see. Amber, if you want to respond to that, let's do that. And then maybe I'll ask a broader question.
Yes. I think it's so fascinating to be mentoring these youth because like I don't do a whole lot of work. I'm not gonna lie, Justin. I don't do a whole lot of work. They come to me with a question. And my typical is like to send a question back, right? Like it's very maternal for me. It's just like I would really parent my 10-year-old. She asks a question like, hey, can we blah, blah, blah. And then I respond with, is that the right choice?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very much that same sort of thing where, hey, I need help with this. Okay, what exactly do you need help with, right? Because from there, we can really launch into a lot of different directions, right? And I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head is I have one here. I asked like, hey, what are some topics that like we could cover going forward? And then from that, it came like this whole conversation with a couple other students of things in that moment that they needed help with. And so where does it go, right? Like, what do we do with these like things they don't really know? And so, okay, let's have a bigger conversation with it, right? And it's really like facilitating that like back and forth between not just me and the students, but between the students and the students, and I'm just there presenting the question and really they're figuring all of it out by themselves. And I think that is like the best thing because they can ask me the question and they think I'm giving them the answer, right? But they know the answer. And that's the fascinating thing is that like so much of what like people complain about now, like adults, right? Is like, oh, the younger generation can't think critically. Like, no, they can. Like, look at these kids. They can like do all of the things. And that's what's really, really cool to me, and I can just be a mentor. I'm just a mentor. I will listen to the question and maybe I'll reword the question back to them, but they know at the end of the day, like how to get to their answer. And I think that's just what's really cool about being a mentor with these groups because they can figure it all out and they're so brilliant and they're doing so many things in so many directions. And it's just really, really cool.
I'm of the mind, and I have a few opinions in the world, but I'm of the mind that we learn more from questions than we do from dictation or prescriptive advice or anything like that. And that's what coaching is. It's the Socratic inquiry kind of thing. And so, yeah, here's to that because, as you said, it's inherent and it just needs to be extracted. And with a little bit of tweaking here and there.
Yeah,
but I think,
absolutely. It's all in the conversation. And I think that like, sure, we're all digital, right? Like we have a monthly meeting and we all meet in a digital light, but just having these conversations, whether it's like via Zoom, whether it's via text, like just ask the question back, and we can figure this out together, and it's just really, really neat.
Wow. Wow. Now, are you paired one-to-one with Anvita, or are you more universal with the student interns?
I am specific to the public relations team, but you know what's
Okay.
really neat is that I often have like LinkedIn messages from people that are on other teams, and they just have a question or something, right? And I think that's what's really cool is that as mentors, we want to be approachable. We want them to come to us with whatever question, like, hey, what do I put as my LinkedIn headline? Or like, hey, I've got something going on, and I was wondering if I could just use your ears. Like, we're here for that as mentors, and I think that's what's really, really cool.
Okay. Okay.
And kind of the cool thing is most of our committees have two mentors,
Okay.
so we get an even broader support and insights.
Yeah. Yeah. More dynamic. It's good. As they say, two heads are better than one sometimes. So,
Oh,
especially
absolutely,
some.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And to that, you know, my co-mentor is just a little bit ahead of me in like the parenting realm. Like her kids are a little older than mine, and so it's always neat to like meet with the students, and then on the other side, like Melissa's very much a mentor to me as much as like we're mentors to one another, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a great relationship. It really is. It's been fantastic, and I love every bit of it.
Oh, I bet. I bet. One of the things I like to wax philosophical about, it's almost a platitude because it's like so obvious, but I love to say that to Anvita, I would say that old people are messengers from the future. And so, and there's some caveats and qualifications in that I know what it's like to be 21 or 22, and so does anybody else over that age. And it's like if you listen to them, they will say, hey, this is what I went through, and just a caveat for that, or a cautionary tale. But we can invert that and say that young people are sort of the voyagers into the future, and so in seeing you and speaking with people in your age range, I see the potential of the future. It's not disclosed yet. You're not 35 yet, but in seeing that, in getting that insight, it's very inspirational because then it gets the imagination going and it forms a reciprocal kind of relation. So I'm babbling about kind of weird stuff, but it just, to me, this kind of relationship works where you have folks that have a little bit of sage behind them, as well as the young persons who are executing that and then doing more novel and more creative insights with that information. So it's just such a nice way that our culture can do that if we choose to. So, Anvita, I would like to ask you, if I have no idea what Digital for Good is or what I Can Help is, and we've covered a little bit in the conversation, can you just, person off the street, no clue, can you kind of give me an elevator pitch or maybe a escalator elevator pitch or something?
Yeah. So our organization is a nonprofit, and we're committed to digital safety, youth empowerment among teens and young adults. So mainly targeting like the middle school to college population. We are student led and student run. So all our curriculum and content is made by students. And then we have mentors like Amber that support each of our teams. And at any given time, we have around 150 interns that are contributing. So we have college interns, high school interns from all across the world, and we all work remotely. So like we've never met in person, but it's actually amazing to see the relationship that we have despite never meeting in person. Um, and then our main focus is preventing cyberbullying and types of online abuse through students. So maybe Kim touched on this, but we do presentations at schools and leadership conferences, making students aware of um, what the reality of social media is, and the dangers that they face, like cyberbullying, catfishing, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And
Mm-hmm.
um, we like to say that social media is your resume for life, because jobs, colleges, anywhere something you want to apply, they typically look at your social media, and your digital footprint is always there. You might have posted something 10 years ago, but it's still there, and you're still the one that did it. So you are held accountable for whatever your actions are online. And then our internship program, as I mentioned, that I'm part of, is amazing. We have our interns are also able to help each other out with different skills, because we have college students who are able to help the high schoolers go through, the college application process, or finding a summer job, something like that. So overall, our organization is like a big family, and we get to do so much good for our communities. And it's basically around the world, because we have interns everywhere that are doing things in their own communities.
Okay. I would like to ask you that if you had the ears of, this is kind of an extension of what Kim and I were talking about the other day. I was asking her about what can big tech do, or what the social media captains do to be of assistance to you all. And then she said, well, there's a need for regulation and perhaps legislation. So let's just imagine that we had those captains of industry in the tech sector, and we had the ears of legislators. What would you say to them from your position to what would you want to vision for the next 5 to 10 years in terms of their being able to step in as a governing, and I mean that in a couple of ways, both state governance, but also like a governing mechanism to help combat some of the hijinks that go on when people create fake accounts, or when things get out of hand in terms of violence and by way of posts and things like that. So what would you say to those people?
Yeah, so we actually do work with big tech companies like Google and Snapchat. Google actually hosted our annual summit this year. So I think the important thing is, when we work with these companies, they ask our students for, what features would you like to see? Or if this feature was implemented, do you think it would be useful? Or what, like, get feedback on these different features. So last year, like, Snapchat came out with their family center feature, which is kind of like parental controls on Snapchat, which is taking a step towards, being more safe, opening up that conversation between students and parents, because oftentimes they don't, students and parents don't communicate much about digital safety or social media usage. So that's one of the things we try to promote, is how can you have a conversation with your parent or with your child about social media, and to make sure that they're safe, just that they know that they're using social media wisely. And then, like if you're saying legislators, I think just students hearing from more prominent figures in society about digital safety has a huge impact. Like, we partner with Aaron Judge, and I've seen how far that impact goes when students hear it from a professional athlete, that how social media has affected them. They start to think that in their mind, and really reflect on their own usage.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the public figure / celebrity impact. And was Aaron in the Digital for Good Summit in New York? There was somebody.
He wasn't. His mom was there.
That's right.
Able to make it.
Anvita, you'd be proud of me. I sat through 4 hours of that digital summit, and I paid attention too.
Yeah.
I confessed to Kim, though, I watched it on 1.5 speed, and I fast forwarded through the breaks. That's how I get through really long conversations, is if I can understand what, the accent. If it's my Anglophone, I can still retain the info. But it was a great summit. So as a tangent, a sidestep, what was your experience there? Did you have a good time? Was it?
Yeah, the summit is an amazing experience. This was my second time going. So the networking, obviously, with all the mentors that are there, they're separate from our committee mentors. So
okay.
They are industry professionals from different organizations. And then also just meeting these students who are doing so much to help their community. And this year they ranged from 10 to like 20 years old, and it's amazing to see the how young or even like a college student is balancing their academics with all this extra projects to help their community around mental health and
Mm,
digital safety, or just increasing opportunities. And I think it's really inspirational, um, that it's something you want to bring back to your own community. And after that, I find myself telling everyone, like, I met these amazing students who
yeah.
were doing this for their community, and I'm so tempted to help out in their organizations, but there's only so many things you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's wisdom to know how to bracket things and how to allocate your attentional resources and so forth. That comes from wearing yourself out sometimes. I can speak to that. So anyway, Amber, did you going back to the idea of what can tech do and what can perhaps legislators or even public figures? Do you want to respond to any of that and give your tuppence on that?
Yeah, I think that, what Anvita mentioned with like people that are already in the public, right? Whether they're athletes, whether they're like musicians, however they found their huge community and their huge following, right? Like if they can understand the impact that they make and really pass that along, I think would just be so huge, so huge. But we all do our own little sliver of what we can, and just keep sharing the good word, really. Like as much as we can share what's positive and what's good and what's going to be helpful for these kiddos is really where it's at.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, it's a team effort, and like
Absolutely.
you said, as I mentioned a second ago, it's you allocate what you can and reserve your resources for another day. Again, hard learned lessons. Thick-headed Irish guy like
Absolutely.
me. So,
Absolutely.
oh gosh. Um, so I want to maybe move into something that's a little heavier, but nonetheless a huge thing, a part of what you all do, and that's mental health, and that is. When I look at the broader picture in this, so I see the people who are doing the bullying and I say there's a mental health issue there. There's, early sociopathic tendencies or something going on there. There's some driver. Maybe there was abuse and there something called mimesis where you just mimic the parent, and so maybe there's an abusive household. Um, so Anvita, I'll pose this to you. This is a part of what you all do in your organization. Is what's the structure there as far as you're relating with your peers and being that supportive uh, agent or agents who are connecting with people who are struggling. Is there something you can share with us in that? And then there's a part two, but I'll wait. Get that out of there.
Yeah. So I think I definitely see the impacts. I am not an avid user of social media. I actually don't have Instagram.
Mhm.
So I see the difference between myself and my peers, how it affects them, Then I got X number of likes, or I got this many comments, but my friend got more.
Mhm.
Uh, and how it affects them and just everyday life, that they put so much value in their social media statistics that they are not as focused on real life. And I think it's important to realize that social media is an amazing tool to connect with people, to share what's going on in your life, but it's also not something that you should rely on for uh, satisfaction, or to be content with, if you're popular or well liked among a certain population. And um, I think that's where cyberbullying kind of comes in, is that when people get a negative comment or something on one of their posts, it affects their mental health, because you don't necessarily know who's behind that screen. And that may affect you more, because if someone said it to your face, you know who's saying it. You can see their body language when they are saying it, but when it's typed out, you don't really know what tone it was intended in, or anything like that. And that can lead to various mental health conditions. And as cyberbullying is kind of increasing in today's society, and people, specifically teens, are spending more time online. I think it's important that they are aware of, what can happen, but also what you can do. Like, don't let it affect your life too much. If you get a negative comment, if you're being bullied, take a break from social media, detox, and kind of just reset. So I think I see that among my peers a lot, and uh, I mean, I can see it getting better with more awareness, but it's definitely still something that's prominent.
I guess the second part of the question would be, and I can only draw on what I've experienced when I was younger, and I was never really, people tried to bully me occasionally, and it never really worked. Mostly because I was just crazy and I'd call their bluff, just run them away, So anyway, but and that was dangerous because they could have really. But anyway, it seemed like that bullying sometimes would happen in a group context. That, in fact, I did get into a schoolyard brawl with a couple of kids, and I called one kid out and I said, "I'll meet you after school in the parking lot across the street so we don't get expelled." And I said, "You and I will work it out," And he brought two of his friends with him. I'm like, What? Yeah, I walked away. I'm like, no, I'm not fighting three people, you sissy. And I'm sorry to use that word, but that's kind of what we used back then. It's like you couldn't stand up for yourself, huh? Okay, so anyway, but that tangent leads to the idea that there's sometimes like a pile-on effect, and one young person might be targeted by a group. Do you see that happening? Do you get that response from people who are using the help of your organization?
Yeah, I think we see that. Like, for example, there's a group chat, and then everyone is bullying one specific person in that group chat. And then I think if that is you, you feel more targeted, and then it's sometimes harder to get out of those situations and deal with it by yourself. And that's where you want to turn to a trusted adult, and then services like ours, like we have people that DM our Instagram with asking for help with an incident of cyberbullying or something else online. And that's when, if you turn to someone who has maybe experience in it or can direct you to someone with experience, it helps you kind of get through it, and then uh, determine the next course of action based on exactly what happened and how you feel about it.
I wonder if schools, I know 15 years ago, I used to hear little blurbs here and there that schools were working on cracking down in face-to-face, in-person bullying in that sense. I wonder if there's a confluence of the two where you can have sort of an online virtual response to cyberbullying or to bullying in general, which might include cyberbullying. And is it, from your experience at being in high school right now, is there a structure within the high school to address either of the things, in person or cyber?
In-person bullying, of course.
Yeah.
There's staff on campus that
Okay.
you can turn to, or I mean, there's fights, they happen.
Yeah.
That's always going to be a thing, but I think it's decreased a lot in the past, like you said, 15 years. But online bullying, I think schools are trying to get there through programs like I Can Help, but it's the technology, it's advancing so rapidly that it's hard for students, educators, and parents to keep up with it. Um, there's all these new features coming out, new platforms, and it's everyone just jumps to those platforms. So it takes a while to figure out how to manage those platforms and deal with cyberbullying incidents. And by then, there's some new feature or some new platform that emerges.
Mm. It's hard to keep up with all the escalating. I used to call it an arms race. I guess it's a tech race to balance, counterbalance, et cetera, et cetera. Amber, I want to go back to you for a second and catch your insights on the mental health aspect of the work that you all do, and what's coming out of this organization with regard to that. Or if you have anything you want to share with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add a little bit more to what Anvita has already mentioned, but I think that the social piece, right? Like the digital piece overall, it's really challenging for the youth. It's really challenging for the adults, the educators, the parents to keep up with the speed, right? Like the students have no problem. They have no problem keeping up, right? It's the educators, it's the parents, it's the teachers, it's all of the like the people that are leading, right? Like it's just so hard for us to keep up with that. And so like how do we do our part so that we're still helping the kiddos, right? And all of the students, whether they're middle school, whether they're college age, to really educate and make sure that they understand the impact, because it's so much different, you know. And I think a lot of the parental responses would be like, then log off or get off of that platform or whatever, right? But like, is that going to be the answer? Or is it like, how do you cope with this? And what are the responses in a digital sort of setting versus like, maybe you know this person online, maybe you've never met this person that's bullying you, but like, what is the appropriate response depending on the scenario, right? And it's just so hard. It really is so hard.
I can't even fathom. I can get it now as a middle-aged adult, but to be Anvita's age or younger, and to try, because I think about this, it's like I grew up. There weren't even desktop computers in my childhood, and that's so awesome. Pocket calculators were the big thing. So they didn't have video games, you know, except for Pong or whatever. So anyway, I was very fortunate that I was not exposed to that, and then that stuff started coming on when I was in my late 20s, early 30s. So it wasn't a problem. But I had a dual perspective, whereas folks Anvita's age have a singular perspective, and they're enmeshed or they're embedded in this. And one thing, if you'll bear with me for just a moment, that might be good for parents if they're listening, is I follow a guy on YouTube. He's a professor of philosophy out at Macau, in Macau University, and he's German. His name's Moeller, and he talks about he has his own ideas, and there's some of the work from another sociologist named Lohman, and this guy Moeller talks about when it comes to social media and the internet and so forth, that there's been a sort of elevation of this idea of a curation of what he calls prophilicity. And prophilicity is a second order identity, perhaps. And so, again, I speak to my youth, and I had one order of identity. I was me, but people at Anvita's age have this curation of prophilicity, the second order observer or the second order personality or identity. And it's almost like an actor when they go into method and they become this other. And so I say this to you, Anvita, perhaps, and to parents, and if there are younger folks listening, that this observation, I think, is essential, because then you can form the sort of reciprocal relationship back and forth between that curated person that is your Instagram account or your TikTok or whatever it is you're doing, and the you that's this very real person that has this sort of substructure of identity. And I say sub because there's also this other online personality. So if you're ever interested, I'll have links to that kind of stuff, because I don't want to drag it out too much. But I think it's important that, to not know what it's like not to be a social media person or an identity of social media, that you can maybe work to get to be more acquainted with the authentic self. Because I think we can, because I do stuff online. I have social media, and I don't really post a lot. I mean, I only have Facebook because, again, I'm old. So that's all I do. And I don't really mess around with it too much, because it just doesn't do much for me. But so anyway, if that's helpful for anybody out there to recognize that there are two things going on there. There's the you in everyday life, and then there's the you that's online. And I think that can cause a modal kind of confusion as to who you are and what's important. Like so in other words, if your online profile self gets attacked, that if you can do a resilience exercise and say, that's not me. That's not me. It is you, but it's also this curated profile of you. And so there's one order of abstraction that you can, as you said, Anvita, turn it, adults would think, well, turn it off. And so maybe there's something there. So anyway, that's my ramble. That's my little thing that I would say, might be a useful tool or utility. Oh, let's see. Anvita, I think we had mentioned this before we started record. Maybe since I just talked to parents and students for a second, what would you say to persons who are struggling with all of this that we've been covering, in terms of feeling the need to be liked and perhaps even adored or looked upon highly, and also the negative things that happen where, you know, maybe you're not popular, you're not, what, at, speaking to your age range, what wisdom and advice would you have for those folks?
I think mainly that, you know, there was a time when there was no social media. Even I find it so hard to imagine, you know, a time with no social media and no computers, phones. But it wasn't too long ago. Like people like you and Amber like lived through that time. So kind of keep in mind that people did survive without technology, and sometimes it's necessary to take a break and reset. But also like don't correlate popularity or the number of likes to your self-worth. Like you said, there's the authentic you, the in-person you, and then there's the online version, which is curated. Most people post only the good things in their life online, which is fine. I mean, if you post something that's not so good, you might get negative comments, which could make it worse. But uh, when you're looking at other people's profiles, you know, kind of keep in mind that it's probably curated, and there's so many, you know, celebrities that used to post only pictures with makeup or like all decked out, and now they've turned to posting just original non-edited pictures. And you can see that at people social media is turning to more of it, blending the your in-person self and not a curated version, because people are starting to realize that it's a curated version of you is not as real. And then people want to probably see real content, like, you know what's really going on in your life. There's good and bad, ups and downs. And I mean, having a support system is all about being able to rely on people during both good and bad times. So, you know, build a support system. And kind of, there's so many resources out there. There are like hotlines that you can text. There's multiple organizations that will help you deal with this kind of stuff. There's resources at schools and colleges that also help with this stuff as it's increasing now.
I didn't even think about influencers when you were speaking just now, and I'm thinking I really would, if I could wiggle my nose and get a wish, that people who are quote unquote influencers, which I never really understood anyway, for that system of social media. Do you think that so you mentioned it, but wouldn't that be great if the trend moved away from shallow aestheticism, shallow looks oriented, and, you know, look at me at the Bali resort and I dropped 10K on this trip. And, you know, I mean, that to me, it's staggering to, again, because it's imbuing on young minds, especially if you don't mind my saying, young women who are being, there's this idealizing of what a teenage woman should look like, or a young woman, and that goes on into adulthood. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I know I'm old fashioned and I'm out of touch, but it's just like I get little snippets from time to time. So yeah, so you think it's trending that way, that people are going more into less filtering, less CG or whatever.
Yeah, and when you see, you see a picture of an influencer celebrity, some of them are, edited, filtered AI, but and then young people especially see those and they want to look like that.
Right.
But in reality, that person doesn't even look like that.
Mhm.
So I think that's kind of where you want to be careful and know that not everything you see is 100% real. It can be edited and something like that.
Okay. Now, Amber, I'll turn to you. I think you said you're a mom to a 10-year-old. So let's start with the mental health, and then maybe go into what Anvita was just covering with, how we see the mirror of ourselves in these influencers, and maybe that mirroring isn't a good, healthy mapping. So
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it too, right? Like the young people see the young influencers, and that's what they want, right? And it really, like, as awful as it is, it carries to young adulthood. It carries into motherhood, where then there's like, new moms that are like all edited and AI'd. And so other new moms think that's what you're supposed to be like.
Yeah.
Like life is not like that as a new mom at all, right? Life is not like that with a 5-year-old, much less a 10-year-old. And so, it definitely has an impact across the board on mental health, because people like are really thinking this is reality when it's so far from, right? Like it's just one little square in their whole entire life. And it takes an impact, because that's what people think their life is supposed to be like, shiny and clean and everything just in place, right? And it's just not the case at all, right? It's not the case. And so, as from a parenting perspective, like what will my line of logic be when my daughter is social media age? Like, I don't know right now. I mean, she's 10 and she doesn't really talk about social media, and that's okay. I'll leave it at that,
Thank
right? For
goodness. Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that as she gets older, like I want to make sure that she understands all of the things that come along with it. Sure, it's what everybody's doing, right? But there's also like some consequences that come with it if it's not utilized properly. And I think that it's just really, really important as I go forward in my motherhood and my parenthood to just make sure my kid understands these things, right? When the time comes. And I think that's where I also lean really heavy on my co-mentor, Melissa, where she's got kids that are older. And so I can field those sorts of questions to her. And we can like bounce ideas off of each other, not just as mentors, but as parents, right? And see like, how do we look out for our kids the best that we can so that they can live their childhood, right? So they can do all of the things that kids do in today's society and also be safe and mentally sound.
Mm. One of the philosophers that I follow on YouTube, he's a cog-sci psych professor, but he really dives deep into philosophy. He's had a couple of guests on, and they're doing something that I think is neat. I think it's in Canada, but I'm not sure. It's probably happening here in the United States. It's a kind of rewilding process where they are taking youth, young persons out into a natural environment, or it doesn't even have to be in the country, or maybe a urban suburban area where there's tangible, concrete things going on, and exposing them to that, and exposing it gets pretty radical, as some of the schools that they attend are, it is no tech, and it's hands-on, it's getting dirty, it's getting messy, in a good way, just good, dirty, like
Yep.
playing with stuff outside, and you get a tear in your shirt or whatever, and it's okay. So I would love to see that, a little sliver of that entering into the pie, of
Yeah.
activity and impressions, and how young people might be interacting with the world, is to say that, as Anvita said, it's this generation knows nothing else but the reality that is right now,
Yeah.
which is fine. I mean, there's so many upsides to what's going on there, and that should be acknowledged. But anyway, so I hope for that too, that as we learn our lessons, this genie's just out of the bottle with tech and social media. I take it back to the first 5 or 6 years of the 2000s. It starts onboarding and started ramping up about probably 2012, 2013, somewhere like that. So we're just starting to, and that's what I would love to see from the adult community and the tech community and the legislative community, is to reflect and do some introspection and say, what are we learning here? And I'm sure there are very good minds doing that, but I would love to see that kind of reflection on what's going on, and how can we learn from that and update what we're doing and our approach to things. But the whole culture as a whole, I think, would need to get in there and get involved, and in a positive way, with good intentions. So
Yeah. I mean, even from like an educational standpoint, like there's so many options for parents to send their kids to school, right? And like from my personal standpoint, here in San Antonio, there's just bukus of options. When we moved here, I was like, how do I even choose?
Yeah.
Like I had no idea, right? And so like her school she's at now, they are computer free. And so it sounds really crazy when I tell people that, like, there's no technology at my daughter's school. They do like, I'm sure you probably did this too, Justin, like typing lessons, you know, like,
Yeah, yeah,
like, yeah. And so they do typing lessons, but she can like log into a website to do some typing. But otherwise, people always ask me like, aren't you scared that your kid is not going to be like technologically inclined? And I'm like, no, she's going to be fine. Like, the kids can learn all of these things so quickly, right? And so like, what do you do to supplement, right? Because there's no technology, like if it's just the worst thing. But like there's so many resources at the same time, you know, like in her Girl Scouts, she does a little coding club, and like it's just coding, right? It's not like digging into social media. It's not like browsing the YouTube. It's not all of these things that could be dangerous for a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old. But it's just so different. And again, it comes into all of the resources that are available.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Diversity and I like that attitude that the school's taking because there's a time and a place. And so perhaps when they're in middle school age or whatever it's called now, the eighth grade, ninth grade, that transition into high school, that's when you can really start. Because tech is the way it's set up, it's pretty intuitive. And when you're under a certain, like under 20, you're onboarding things much more efficiently than adults do. It's a little harder. Yeah, yeah. Learning is good. It's easy. It's almost like picking up a language. There's a window up to like 12 or 13 years old where picking up a second language is nothing. It's not a problem at all. So yeah, we can imagine it that way. Anvita, do you want to lend some insight into that and the diversity of education and how maybe that would be either good or maybe not?
Yeah. So actually, for me, I was in my whole seventh grade year was online because of COVID. So
Hmm.
that was when I started really using computers on a daily basis for multiple hours. Before that was like an hour or two here or there for schoolwork, but not so in depth. And then I think between eighth and ninth grade, it was high usage. And then this year, I actually realized that I prefer paper, hard copy assignments,
Hmm.
um, because you're on your screen so much for other purposes. I do this, I can help work. It's online. Other stuff. There's some school assignments that can only be done online, but when there's a paper version, I prefer that because I'm like, I'm not used to handwriting anymore. Um, so that was kind of came as a surprise to me. And then, as you were saying, at this age, students pick up things quickly, and there's age limits on uh, social media. I think you have to be 13 or 16 or something to be on Instagram. Same with Snapchat, LinkedIn, Facebook. But there are kids as young as 10, 11, 12 years old that are on social media, and uh, for them it might not show now, but maybe they accidentally click something right now, and it comes back to them 10 years later. So there's kind of those age limits for a reason, and until they understand that whatever they do is going to stay with them for life.
Yeah, Kim had mentioned that it's hard to erase your history and the things that you do and things that you post and so forth. So it's something to keep in mind. We have hit about an hour, so what I might want to suggest here is that we'll do some closing thoughts and some parting thoughts and ideas, and then we can wrap it up. And if you guys want and you had a good experience, you can always come back. You're always invited back, and we can pick up and go in different directions. But Anvita, let's start with you. And hmm, I won't even try to put a lead into it. Just go ahead and just share what's on your mind about the future or where we are right now with what you all are doing.
I mean, again, like, thank you so much for having us here. It's
Of course.
platforms like these that help us get the word out, not only to students, but to educators, parents, and just the community as a whole, because it's kind of a community effort. We want everyone to be on the same page with all the updates to technology, how to be safe. That way, it's easier to have a conversation between anyone. Like me and Amber and I are on the same page. We can have a conversation about digital safety. um so she's teaching me things about maybe social media platforms or some other skills, and like it goes the same way other way. And I think it's just important to maintain an updated knowledge of things that are going on, you know, kind of follow the new features that are coming out, see where that's going to take you. And um, I'm always trying to think, I'm like, where will technology be in 5 years? Like, but I think it's so hard to imagine because it's growing at, or at least for me, I think it's advancing so fast that I'm like, oh my gosh, 10 years ago, you know, iPhones were so small, they had such little features. It was like, it's hard to remember that now, but, and we're so advanced now that it's, I'm eager to see where it goes in the next few years.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Amber?
Yes, thanks again so much for having us. You know,
Of course.
when it comes to my role as a mentor, it really does take a village, right? It takes a village, and not just like so that we can help raise our next generation, but so that people like me, parents, educators, all of these things can learn from the youth, because they know so much. They know so much. They want to do so much. We just have to give them like a little bit, right? Give them a little bit, let them explore what they are interested in and take it from there, because they're so capable. They are so capable. And it's just fantastic to see. I think that being part of this community is so impactful for me. We offer so much, not just for students, but for parents, for educators, for anybody that has a younger person in their life that could potentially benefit, and that's likely on social media.
Well, I want to thank both of you, firstly, for being here and having this conversation with me. I always like to imagine with my guests and interlocutors that this conversation will be on my channel, of course, but it'll also have a life on its own. It'll go out into the world and be discovered by, I always hope that by people who can benefit from it and grow from it. But it's the work that you all do that is the attractant, the lure, that brings that interest and that curiosity. And so thanks to both of you for everything that you're doing. I will follow the progress and the growth and the continuation of I Can Help and the work that you all are doing. And I am supportive from afar and invested in envisioning the success that you all can achieve with what you're doing. And I would say to persons watching, to parents, this is such a wonderful resource. And to, if there are young persons watching, that this is a resource. And if you are, so to the young persons, if you're experiencing cyberbullying or you're having problems with any of this and it's affecting you emotionally, this is a resource for you. And as somebody who gets paternal once in a while, I would say you are worth it. You are worth it, and you are a worthy person. And no matter what happens online, it's irrelevant. You just got to be in your heart and know that you are worth it. So those are my fatherly words that I'll issue to anyone who's watching. So again, thanks to both of you. I will, again, to parents and young persons who are here, I'll have tons of relevant information down below, website links and so forth, resources to access I Can Help, and any socials. I think they're on, you guys are on Twixter. I found that. So anything I can do to get that set up, I will make sure it's down below in the description field. So again, thank you guys so much. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
It was great talking to you.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. I really did. And I learned from you, Anvita, and I learned from you, Amber. And I appreciate that too. I don't know if I'll ever be wise, but I like to flirt with wisdom every once in a while. So this helps me flirt with wisdom a little bit here. So I'll say goodbye to the both of you after we're done with record, but to the YouTube audience, thank you. And again, I hope this has a positive impact on lives out there. So, and if you know people out in the community that could benefit from this, then you don't have to share this conversation. You can if you want, but also just any information is down below. So thank you guys on YouTube.